Hey guys, welcome to your next Blender tutorial, and we're having a lot of fun here with rust and stuff with this lamp over here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go check out my previous tutorial where we did this whole majiggy over here. Just a quick recap. So we've got two different materials that's plugged into this lamp over here, and it is the rust and it is the paint, and we're using a mix shader, and we've got ourselves a nice mask over here, which is what is determining where our paint needs to go and where our rust needs to go. All right, so we're going to take this up to a whole other level. So we're using a mix shader here, and just so you know, the color ramp is generating out of our geometry, our pointless information here. It's not pointless, pointiness. Yes, our pointiness, and we've generated a black and white color ramp out of that, well, a mask. All right, the black areas are going to be, now looking at this mix shader, the black areas, okay, if I had to plug this straight into the surface, I don't know if you'll see it, but how mask works is there are black and white areas, can be according to a pattern, can be according to an image, and it mixes the black areas, the paint, the rust, and the white areas, the paint. If I disconnect this, I can mix it, but instead I'm actually using a mask into my factor, and that is generated here, which is what's giving us that on the edges. You'll see even on the inside over there, we see our rust, and everywhere else there is paint. But we're going to take this to a whole other level, and we're going to show you that. So the first thing that I want to do, that we're basically going to be doing out of this, is that we need to I want to group note this, because one of the important things is keeping, once your node starts getting a lot, when you start getting a lot of nodes, what happens is then it's a good idea to group them. So you'll see even our rust node is a group, okay, of nodes. And so I want to group my mask over here, okay, and from that we're also going to be able to get a bit more control on the edges and where we want our paint and our rust to be, okay. But our color ramp, you can node it, but group it, but you can't control it from the outside, like we've done in this group node. We've got our controls here, so you don't have to go on the inside and adjust here. You can just do it straight from here. So what I'm going to show you another way of doing this. I'm going to delete it, and we're going to do that basically by we're going to exchange them out by something called, so we're going to add in a math node. I'm going to duplicate this math node. All right, let me just pause. I'm going to pause my rendering here while I'm working. I'm going to duplicate it 3 times, okay, and I'll be connecting them up. So I'm going to connect my, let's do this, let's zoom in. All right, let's work nicely here. So I've created 3 math nodes. My pointiness will go into here, and I'm going to change this math node to subtract, change this value, plug it into here, and I'm going to use this as a multiply, and I'm going to keep this as add, plug it into there. I can delete this guy over here now. All right, awesome. And basically what that gives us, if I plug this into my factor, let me show you what it does. Now I want to show you something cool. All right, so right now it's sitting gray here, but if I have to adjust this, let's say I bring it up, you're going to see that it's going to give me rust on the inner. So looking at angles, because that's what pointing is, it helps us with our mapping on our angles. All right, angle like here and angle like here. If I go into the negative value, it's going to do it on the opposite ends. Okay, pretty awesome. So that gives us a very good a very good start in terms of what we're wanting to do. So I can start off by by grouping these. I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to click over here just to make sure I've got nothing else selected, otherwise you're going to throw that into the node, and I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to press Command G because I'm on a map. All right, so now we're sitting in our group node over here, and so with what I've just shown you, that means we want to control our multiply math node. And so I can what I can basically do with that is I can now plug this value into my group node over here. And what I can do with that, I'm going to take this value, all right, here we go, input, and I'm going to actually, let's see, so I'm going to group the input. I'm going to change the default value to 10 instead, number 1. I'm going to rename this, all right, so group input, okay, I'm going to name it to basically positive edge. Okay, and I'm going to show you now why. I'm going to give it the default value of 10. And then what I'm going to do is, and you'll understand exactly why I'm going to do this, minimal, I'm going to say 0. So what I'm doing is I'm setting parameters for how I can adjust, how much I can adjust this from the outside. And my maximum, I'm going to put to 180. Boom. Okay. So this now adjusts the inner part. So let's just pause this over here. All right. But now what I want to do is I would like, okay, wait, and sorry, and this output, I'm going to rename the output to FAC, which stands for factor, because we're adjusting the factor of our mix of our rust and our paint. Okay. So then what I'm going to do here is then I am going to group these guys over here. And again, select all these guys. Now this is quite amazing. Command G. So now what I've done, if I press tab, I've got a node within a node. Okay, there you go. I've got a node and I've got another node in here. And so now what we need to do with this, okay, having all of this plugged into here, our next thing that we are going to do is we're going to change our group input. Okay, group input. And I'm going to instead call this now, not there, my bad, over here. I'm going to rename my input to, I'm just going to call it edge. All right. And I'm going to change my output naming. The naming is quite important, guys, because you know exactly what you're adjusting. I'm going to call it FAC again, factor. Okay, pretty cool. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to rename this actual group node over here. Let's call it, so I can name the node. I'm going to instead name this, so if we go to node, label, and I'm going to call it edge finder. All right, cool. So with this node alone here, all right, I now have, if I go out here, I'm adjusting my positive edge. All right, watch this, if I can make this bigger. I'm adjusting my positive edge only. You'll see that I cannot go below 0. Okay, you can see I'm putting the mouse and it only goes to 0, and that is just simply because of the parameters that I set within this input over here. Okay, which is cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to now create my negative part, because with this node over here I affect my positive edge, and now I want to affect my outer edge. So I'm going to select this node, and this is where grouping your nodes helps. So Shift D, and I'm now going to create my negative part of my mapping. Okay, so and I'm going to, firstly I'm going to attach this onto my group input. I'm going to rename it. So here's my inputs, my edge, and I'm going to call this my negative edge. And I'm going to do the same thing. So my default value, I'm going to rename, I'm going to put it -10. Okay. I'm going to say minimal is 0. Maximum is -18. So it's the inverse of this guy over here. Okay. So yes, positive is 10, minimal 0, maximum 8, negative, let me just double check this again. I think I need to actually put
my minimal, sorry, at minus 180, maximum at 0. Yes, that's the way around. And what this node's going to help me with is the negative part. And again, I can control that now, see, from the outside of my node with all my other textures. Pretty awesome. And now I need to mix these two nodes together. So how do I do that? I'm going to use a math node. And what this math node helps me with, okay, is I'm going to use something called minimal. Here we go, minimum. So I can plug this in because it's going to take the two values and it's going to take the minimum of that value. Don't ask me about that. This is just the way you do it, okay? All right, just trust me. And what I want to do now with this is I want to, let's go out here. I'm going to name this node structure. So first of all, let's see how this works. But before that, let's label it. I'm going to call it structure, yes. And let me show you how cool this works now. So let's continue my rendering. And I'm going to make adjustments here now. So positive edge, if I make it 17, let's say I make it 0. Okay, I'm hoping this works because it doesn't look like it works. Let me change this back to 0. So my negative edge, I can only go in the minus areas, see? If I push anymore, it doesn't go beyond 0. My positive edge works the other way. I cannot go below 0, but I can go above 0. So let's say I make this 17. You can see I'm affecting that edge within there. All right, let's pull it down. If I pull my negative edge down, you can see I'm affecting those edges there. So I'm actually now easily able to adjust which side, how much rust I want on whichever side edge. So let's say I want some nice heavy rust on my positive edges, and my negative edges I don't want too much rust, maybe just a light bit of rust, because you know you handle this lambton, and so you know any excess water usually just sort of drops down to the center. Let's just go with that method. Okay, so negative, let's go negative, maybe negative 11. All right, so there you go. I can easily adjust that now. So that's pretty awesome. That's cool. Looks great. The next thing that I'm wanting to add in here is I'm wanting to add in some finer edges around the structure here. So like a bit of rust around here, you know, because maybe rain, the way that the rain sort of hits the lambton, because that's obviously where rust comes from. It's water, it's liquid, moist, whatever, mostly from rain, because people carry their lambtons in the rain. Yep, that's why you have the whole glass covering. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And so where do I want to do that? Now, if you've looked at a previous tutorial, we've used something called ambient occlusion, an ambient occlusion node. And that's what we're going to use. Now remember that this node over here is what controls our mapping. That's why we've got our two materials, pretty awesome. But now if I adjust my mapping, that will adjust where my two different materials. So that's where we're going to work in. So I'm going to select my structure node, press tab. Aren't you proud of yourself if you've been following along with what you've done so far? I think that's pretty awesome. So I need to add in my ambient occlusion into here. And I believe it is an input? There you go, ambient occlusion. I'm going to place it over here. Take my samples to 8 straight away, immediately. Okay. And how am I now going to connect this guy up, right? To show you exactly what this guy actually does. We're going to use something called, and we've worked with this before, and it's called a where are you? Map range. We're going to use something called my map range. So I'm going to plug my ambient occlusion into my value, because that's where you plug your value into. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to now, to add this guy in with our mix of our edges, I'm going to duplicate my math node right over here, plug my result into this value over here. Okay. And now the question is okay, wait. So first of all, we should already begin seeing the effect of the ambient occlusion. As my render clears up, you can actually start seeing some of the rendering, the rust coming through over there, and you can see how ambient occlusion is pretty powerful. Now if I adjust, so if I zoom in here, if I adjust my minimal, if I go to 1, it's fully rust. If I go a bit below 0.6, you can now see how there is a rust starting to appear on the top here, around the sides, and you can even see over here. So this is quite awesome. Now what we want to do is we want to control this from the outside, and therefore we already know that we control this node over here. So I'm going to plug this into my group node, my node input, and I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it rust hardness. Okay, pretty awesome. So what's nice now is I can control all of that from this guy over here. Something else that you want to do just to maybe be a bit more organized, there's something called framing. So I can select these 2 nodes here. I can press Command J and I framed it, and within that frame now, if I go to node, I can name this, let's say we call it edges, because we know that that is what is determining the edges, right? And we know that this is my ambient occlusion. Select these 2, Command or Control J, and I framed it, and I want to call this one ambient occlusion. Boom. Okay, I'm going to hit save. I'm going to come back, and so there you go. We've got our nice structure, and I think that as this clears up, you're going to see how, look at that. So we've got like tons of nodes here. We've grouped them, we've named them, and this doesn't look like a mess, but yet we're getting quite a satisfying look on our lambton already. Don't worry, we've still got a few things to do, a ton of things that we can still learn from this. And from this node over here, I'm adjusting my map. You should feel proud of yourself. I feel really proud about myself that I've created this node over here, and in this node I can adjust the 2 different edges, my positive edge and my negative edge, and I can adjust this hardness of the rust over here. You can actually see how that rust hardness just sort of gives a linear fall off of the rust of the map. Pretty awesome. All right, so there you go, guys. We're going to continue in our next video with this material. So what you've learned here is creating a rust material, creating a paint material, and especially if you've got an object that is rusty, how you can apply the material using a very cool map. And just so you know, just a heads up, if you ever want to add these nodes, I've taught about this before. Once you've grouped something cool, when I press Shift A and I go to my groups, yeah, I guess you just need to rename these, but these are nodes, I guess. But I think maybe that's where you need to label these guys over here. But once you label them, you can, in your group, you can even import. So if you've got another project, I can import the groups into my new project. If I've, let's say, created this structure and I want to use it again somewhere else, you can do that, no problem. Your hard work doesn't have to be only applied to one project for you having to redo everything again, and then you have to go find my video because there was one thing you forgot, you didn't quite understand the notes, you were in a rush, you were very hungry, so you're a bit shaky, so you didn't quite write it down properly. Now you have to go find out. You can just go to your project, you can import, I think it's called file, and you can say, I think, append, link or append. But we'll look at that. We'll definitely look at that. Hopefully I don't forget. In fact, what the heck? Let's just go. I'm creating a new node here. File, link, and there you go. Here's our lamp. And I believe I was using this one. And I could link. And then you'll see all the files in here. So you want to go to textures, it might be brushes, camera collection, texture. Okay, don't worry, we're discovering this together. Material, there's your lab material, link it in, and then what you can do is say Shift A, group, and there's all your group nodes. There's your, like I said, I think the important thing is just to rename it properly. Okay, so you can go ahead and you can go do that. So I've taught you something even more. Pretty cool. Just rename those nodes. So guys, check you out in the next video. Till then, subscribe to our channel, because you know, to support what we're doing here. Go check out our playlist for our other shows and all the other things that we do, whether you're on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute or Odyssey. We're there. And do me a favor, like this video, because I know you like this video. See you next in the next video. Cheers, guys.
You hurt, I grow, I rock, you roll, we steal the show. I lock, you load, we lose control. I won't